And we are live. Hello, YouTube land. This is Joss. I'm about to start recording for Nutty Bites, and I will introduce my guests when I do that. So let me hit record and hit the button again. Hello, Mixed Nutcases. This is Joss, and I've got an episode of Nutty Bites for you. It might be special. It might not be. I tried really hard not to say it, but I still talked about it being a special episode. With me, as usual, I have...
Hi, I'm a limited edition Tek action figure.
And new to the podcast, a very good friend of mine, we have Podcasting's Rich Siegfried. Hello, Rich.
Hello, everybody. This is the sound of my voice. In Tek, how many points of articulation do you have?
Not enough. I'm like a crappy Ken doll.
We need to modify those shoulders to get them down.
Yes, absolutely.
Sensei says they're constantly up. It's a default.
Yeah, these weird Aikido grip hands that don't actually grip anything.
Yes. And as generally usual, we have a Big Daddy guest. Hello, Jason. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Nutty Bites fans. It's me again.
Hey, Big Daddy.
And today we're going to be talking about Geek Toys. Now, the reason that I was thinking about this is we got the news that Toys R Us is closing, at least in the US, possibly in Canada. It's still being determined. And it's kind of an end of an era for some people. But one of the things that Tek and I were talking about is how, one of the things that Toys R Us kind of forgot to do is to focus and market to the people who have the biggest amount of cash. And that's geeks with no lives. I mean, with lots of hobbies. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Geek Toys because, I mean, now where do we get our toys? I mean, we can go to Think Geek, we can go to GameStop, we can go to Hot Topic, we can go to Spencer's. There's all these different places, and kind of Toys R Us dropped the ball on that one. So, Tek, how many Geek Toys do you have? Ballpark.
Well, that's not where I was going to go with the conversation.
Oh,
how many toys do I have? How many rooms in this house are jam full of extra shelves that we had to go buy to hold all of our toys?
Yes.
Our house is full. I mean, just look at the walls of the Nutty Bites studio here and imagine this theme continuing throughout the house. What I was going to say that Amazon killed the retail star.
Yeah.
But I don't just mean Amazon.
You mean
online retailers, Think Geek, and all of the other ones have killed retail outlets. Look what happened to Target in Canada. Look what just happened to Sears. Look what's happening to, what happened to Eaton's a few years ago. What happened to Zellers before that? Okay, I'm sorry. You were gonna say?
No, that's great. And Barnes and Noble and lots of the bookstores are closing, and a lot of these
traditional retail is dead. And when you are a toy store that refuses to update its business model beyond the boy aisle, girl aisle, bicycle aisle model that it had in 1984, you quickly find yourself going broke because there's nothing in your store that I can't get cheaper on Amazon. So they also did nothing to bring me into their retail locations, and so they died.
Yeah.
But you want to talk Geek Toys? We have a house full of them, and we didn't need Toys R Us to get them.
No, we didn't. Rich, just give us a little idea of your toy consumption.
I have somewhere between 4,000 and 17,000. I'm not 100% sure. I have purged a bunch, like given the majority of my Star Wars collection to various convention charity auctions and stuff, just because I didn't have. Well, honestly, the prequels really killed a lot of my love for Star Wars. Now, the new movies have brought it back, but I don't have that collectible itch to scratch anymore.
Mm-hmm.
For me now, I'm much more into like original, unique kind of pieces. things like from the patches from Monster Rangers are really awesome. I am a subscriber to Loot Crate, so getting some of those things are really cool. But Tech, with you mentioning Toys R Us, I think what might have saved them is if they partnered up with some of the sites like ThinkGeek,
absolutely,
what have you. And because one of the problems with Toys R Us was that they were really just the mainstream manufactured, just kind of
the Mattel, the Hasbro,
the things that all kind of looked the same. There wasn't a lot of uniqueness to them, and that's why so many things, like whether it's Etsy or individual shops, you're starting to think Geek, whether it is the product tie-in stuff or if it's the uniqueness of things that's really coming out, which is kind of surprising because we see that like Funko Pops are so popular and they all look the same, but have a unique painting on them. No, and I love them too, but they really are just about all the same. I mean, but like Legos, that's essentially what they are. They're like Legos. But the differences in them are the little things you either stick to them or how they're painted and whatnot. So I'm not 100% sure exactly how valid my argument is, since I realized a counter argument while I was talking about it. But I think a lot of it has to do with just the loss of individuality or uniqueness with a lot of the stuff. And so for me, like I love tiki glasses, so I've got a bunch of those. I've got art pieces that I pick up at cons. But when it comes to toys, basically Loot Crate. Loot Crate is the thing that brings me things, the physical, tangible things that I can hold, instead of just going out to an overpriced retailer and getting stuff that I'm just going to look at.
Yeah. And your suggestion there is one of the reasons why I asked Jason to come on, because he currently works for a company that did partner with ThinkGeek.
No, they didn't partner with them. They bought them.
Yeah, they bought them.
Really?
So that you could see the ThinkGeek items in a store.
It's So it's been said a few times, but I work for GameStop, and GameStop has done a couple of things to try to save themselves. Because let's be real, digital gaming is taking a massive effect. Like people, I mean, yes, right now. You can, when a game first comes out, you can buy it digitally for the same price you can buy it in the store. But you got Steam sales, you have flash sales on Sony, on the PlayStation and the Microsoft, where now retailers or game developers can say, well, yeah, when we launched the game, it was this, but it's been out for a month or two. We can now mark it down $20 off. Or even half price, because we don't have to distribute it. We just literally let you download the software and it's nothing off our backs. So GameStop bought ThinkGeek because they saw that there was a market for collectible things. However, they didn't prune it, right? What I mean by pruning it, they didn't get you to that place where those things you need, like Rich was talking about, those unique things. They have a lot of tie-in materials. A lot of it is a tie-in stuff, like Nerf guns for Deadpool or Star Wars or things like that. Every so often you get some gems in, though, like the Bluetooth Star Trek communicator pin that you can use to talk to people through, like an actual Star Trek communicator. It's pretty dope. Also, they've gotten a resurgence, or I shouldn't say resurgence, but they've actually increased their number of model kits. I'm talking about, I've got an Epion sitting in my store that I'm probably going to buy. Yeah, I'd love model kits. But so they haven't pruned it down, which I think they need to do, because like you said, you have to be unique. Like you can't just have the run-of-the-mill Toys R Us stuff, because it doesn't really sell. Whereas where you sell is, like, prime example, I have a customer, I'm not going to say his name, but he will not buy, like, we have to display statues and stuff. So if we have multiples of them, I will set them aside, display one. If he sees one and says, hey, do you have another one of those that's actually still in the box? I'll go grab it for him. He will drop $500 in cash, no problem, if it's a statue he wants. And that's the type of person you have to go for when you deal with these type of geeky collectibles, because they don't want the run of the mill. They want the mint, unique, not very many of these things. And that's what most geeky toys are about, right? It's like having that thing on your shelf that you can be like, hey man, look at this. Prime example, new collectible we got out with the new Infinity Wars tie-in. We have an Infinity Gauntlet. Like, and it's like,
yeah, they're awesome. They're huge.
Yeah, it's enormous. And I've sold both of them. Like, they're both, we got 2 in, sold them within 2 days.
Well, yeah, that makes sense because it's a right hand, left hand. What do you want to walk around with just one?
By the way, I can't wait to see someone with 2 Infinity Gauntlets walking around. This whole thing's gonna be great. But it's that thing. Like, you know what? They're probably gonna literally put it in a case with it lit up because it does light up, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's gonna sit there forever. But it's something you can literally say, hey man, check this out. And like, you know, again, I have a video of my small little statue collection, and I've got several different ones, but the star of it is my little Sailor Jupiter just sitting so neatly on my little shelf.
Oh, Sailor Jupiter.
So GameStop, by the way, speaking specifically, like a few other stores, are the stores that have a wall of pop figures. And pop figures has been the gateway for some people to get into geek toys. There are some people that are like, oh, I'm an adult, I don't do toys. And then they're like, oh, but look at this pop figure. Oh, I have to get this pop figure from my favorite TV show. And then they get sucked in because then they see all the other cool things, you know, like the Death Star waffle maker. I mean, who doesn't want that? Now, granted, it's a kitchen tool, but it's still a toy. I mean, come on.
And it also proves the flat Death Star theory. So
exactly.
Now, speaking of pops, like I openly admit I have a pop problem, and it's getting bad. Because I love Overwatch. I love playing Overwatch. I've actually gotten into playing competitive Overwatch on the console, and every time they come out with a new wave of Overwatch pops, I pre-order every single one, and I did it with this last run. I almost have enough. Actually, technically, I have enough to recreate the Overwatch cast poster with pops, and I literally bought a curio cabinet last week just for my pop.
That is fantastic.
And for me, what's really bad is that pops are a tie-in to something I love, which is anime, because pops are just chibi characters.
Yep.
And they're the super deformed, cute, adorable little chibi characters turned into something I can tangibly touch. And it's great. And most of the time, like a lot of people, like, I just want to collect the rare ones. Me, I collect the things I like. Like you were talking about, Nutty. I found a War Doctor pop after John Hurt passed away. I searched for this thing and I got one, and it's awesome. I've got not Shaggy. I'm sorry. I've got Scooby and I got Velma.
You know, that brings me to something that I wanted to talk a little bit about with Geek Toys, because Geek Toys is kind of a gateway to our inner hoarding, our inner completionists. We want to have the whole set. We got to catch them all, kind of a thing. And once you get one, it leads to others.
Oh, absolutely.
Tek, you wouldn't know anything about that, or building a curio cabinet for some toys.
No, the ones I'm holding in my hands that you can show to my friends right now. So here, if you'll hold them up to the camera, this is my obsession and has been my obsession since I was 16 years old. That is a Warhammer figure.
Yeah.
That is Typhus, leader of my Death Guard. And here's my Vindicare. My Vindicare assassin from my Imperial Guard army. My Imperial Guard army right now stands at 8 tanks, 3 super heavies, 9 war walkers, and 252 individual infantry models, not counting my assassins. My Death Guard, I've got maybe 40 or 50 models in it, 2 plague bringers, and a whole bunch of tanks that I'll be getting soon because I can't stop. We're talking about overpriced collectibles. These are the definition of overpriced.
And the
Games
best
Workshops sells things in the value of human souls.
And the best part is, Tek, you have to paint them too.
I know. And they come unassembled on the plastic sprue, and it's up to you to assemble them and then paint them yourself. So I have a whole bunch in a box that I rescued. A friend of mine gave them to me in frustration. Some kid at the model store spent hundreds of dollars buying this army and didn't know how to paint them, but knew that they had to have red armor. So he took the assembled glued model in his hand, had a big vat of house paint, and just dunked it into the paint and let it dry. They were dip painted.
It's horrible. By the way, this plague soldier is really well done.
Yeah, it's typhus. Of course.
By the way, so here's a question for you, Tek. Because I know a lot of people, a lot of collections and hobbies are therapeutic. They're things people do to relax.
Painting is one of those very, very few hobbies I have that allows me to sit still and be quiet, and I don't mind it. I have ADHD. I am the frantic contradiction. I am a frantic, busy person, to say the least. But painting my minis is one of those things that I can turn on some music, sit there for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours and not notice the day went by. It's a great de-stressor. It's a great hobby, and it's fun. It's creative, and beyond the paints, I mean, and the expensive models, I mean, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting in my house. The actual playing of the game, I have very few friends to play with. And we don't play that often because to us, collecting the minis and painting them and assembling and making little stories for our armies is a lot more fun than the rolling of the dice. And the game isn't bad. I have a big problem with other geeks, and this is the problem I have with a lot of geek games, is that, we were drawn to these games and to these hobbies because we were socially awkward and couldn't get into the other things that we were told were important. So now we try to do games of social interaction played by people who can't socially interact. So I've had guys at the store like step to me and like do the alpha gorilla chest pump and say, yeah, well, you can't do that with that model in my army, this, and yeah, well, what do you think you got, bruh? I think I have plastic. I think I've got plastic dollies, and I think I'm going to roll some dice to see if they're better than your plastic dollies. You do realize I am an actual soldier and have gone to actual war. Like, if I want to, if you want to fight, enlist. Other than that, be quiet and let's roll some dice and see if your imaginary elves can beat my imaginary plague zombies.
By the way, folks, if you want to fall into a hole, go read the Black Library and just read about the different chapters of the Warhammer 40K universe. Holy cow.
That's the one thing that Games Workshop got right. It's that if they're going to create an obsessive hobby, they might as well fill it and make it something to obsess about. So what I love in everything that they do is they say, these are the things that we've created, but go ahead and make your own. So in everything that they do, they'll be like a list in a book and say, these are the 20 regiments that went over the hill during this battle. And you'll see 20 of them, and 2 of them will be redacted. And they won't tell you why. And they leave everything with a little hint of vagueness in everything they do to give you an in to tell your own story.
A built-in outlet for fan fiction.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what role-playing is, right?
Oh, you mean like Star Wars used to have?
Yeah.
Before House of Mouse got involved.
Yes.
But or like Star Trek used to have before they started to make Star Trek again and then, stopped all the fan projects.
Yeah, and brought up the rules of acquisition. There is that. There's definitely a little bit of a hoarding nature. There's definitely I want to get all the different things. I personally have limited my pop figure consumption, just like really important pops, ones that I think are inspiring, or I would just get them all. But I do love going and looking at all the new ones.
Oh, absolutely. Well, for me, when it comes to the pops, I know my addictive personality. I know that I will deep dive into them and get every character of every fandom that I have. So that's why I don't buy them. I only get the ones that come to me via Loot Crate. Some of them, they're not my thing, but they look cool, so I put them up. Other ones, I really love them. And then there's 2 that I have that I didn't get through Loot Crate, or 3. One of them is one of the snow troopers from The Force Awakens. And then I got 2 separate Deadpool ones. And those 3 I won in a trivia contest. And one of the writers of Deadpool, he wrote a couple of the Deadpool comics. He was there, so I got him to sign them.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that's it when it comes to the pops, because I know I have to make house payments. I've got kids that need clothes and food. So yeah,
you're gonna want to go to college someday, and these toys are not.
They're not that smart. No, they it's it's something that I do have to. Yeah, there's all those kinds of things, and it's something that I don't even wish I could do, because I know exactly what would happen, and it would not be pretty. I would be selling plasma to get the latest Phasma. You know, I mean, which is how that would work for me. It's just
what you did there.
But you know, for me though, like mentioned with the tikis, because I was looking over and I've got a bunch of, like, I've got a zombie tiki, I've got a Frankenstein, I've got a Cthulhu, I have an Edgar Allan Poe, I've got one from the Gwar Bar, Venom, Carnage, those, and Batman. Those three were from Loot Crate, a bunch of random ones, you know. But I think that the only thing that I really actively collect right now are two comics. It's the Tick and Flaming Carrot. Those are ones that if I go into a comic book shop, I have to go through their long boxes to track those down. And if they have them and I don't have them, I buy them. That and Rocketeer. Those are really the three that I'm just like, I want those. Now I restrain myself from going online and buying them. It's only if I go into a place, if the opportunity, because that's kind of what I have to do. The one time that I went online and was like, I'm going to buy something, I ended up buying $100 vaudeville joke book, or 100-year-old vaudeville joke book. And yeah, none of those are repeatable. It's 100 years old. But I do like a lot of the vaudeville circus burlesque stuff. But again, that's something that I just like. I have very expensive tastes, and it's just not good to the pocketbook. So I have to restrain myself.
You know, it's funny you brought up comics, because I was sitting here, I was actually thinking about this on my way home from work when Nutty mentioned, you know, Geeky Toys. And I was like, a lot of the things that geeks have and collect necessarily by other people wouldn't be considered a toy. And I have a very large manga collection. It's real large. And what's worse still
this is just sounding dirty.
What's worse still is my anime collection is probably 5 times bigger than it. Like, and I realized that not only is it because I love anime and I love collecting anime and I love getting the things that I enjoy, but it's also based off the fact that growing up, I couldn't get it freely as I do now. And I caught myself in an old man moment. And Tek, we really do need to do this old guy podcast, because someone was talking about how they were complaining about this anime. And I was like, you know, when I was growing up, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to watch black and white reruns of Gigantor with terrible dubs. I had to watch Ronin Warriors, aka Samurai Troopers, with like that crappy what you call it, dub? Oh god.
Back in my day, we had to go all the way to the East Village to find some anime.
I was like, the only anime I could watch was on Saturday Anime on Sci-Fi, and it was heavily edited, and like they reran Akira at least twice a week. Like I was like
when Space Channel was brand new, if you stayed up late enough at night, you could watch Captain Harlock or Galaxy Express 555.
Yeah, and I was like,
in my day, we had GoBots and Smurfs, and we liked it.
And we liked it.
Yeah, and I was like,
you like the Snorks, you were driven out of town on the rails.
Awesome. I'm sure I would never want to watch an episode now, though.
And I was like, I told him, I was like, look, man, I was like, the last anime season in 2017 had over 100 different shows either continue, start, or wrap up. I was like, we couldn't take a bag of marbles and throw them and hit 100 different anime back when we were trying to watch and find anime. Like Chris Sabat, voice actor for Vegeta, Piccolo, and a bunch of DBZ characters, super good guy. He was talking in an interview. He was like, when he started in voice acting, like you didn't say you did voices for anime characters. You were like, I do voices. And because people would be like, well, what do you do voices for? And he'd be like, this show called Dragon Balls. It's on Sunday mornings before Hercules: The Legendary Journeys on Fox. Like now it's enormous. And that feeds into that thing. And I'm sorry, I will never stop collecting anime because, again, like it's a thing that for me was rare. It was super rare. Like when I went and found like in Saturday Matinee, which is a company that does not, well, it's a store that doesn't exist anymore under the label of FYE and Suncoast. And I found that they had an anime section. You can believe I was buying things that I should not have been buying. Looking at you, Wicked City. But anyway.
I think that you're saying what many of us geeks have felt, because growing up, either these things were not available, or in my case, a lot, they were not allowed. I am not spending a bunch of money on some Star Trek toys for you. No, that is a waste. Go play with your Fisher Price people. It was and growing up, it was, the board games that you would play were like, Sorry and Monopoly and Scrabble, and there was no European board game. So now we're like, oh, this board game has a whole different set of rules. Let me try this one. Oh, and this one's also completely different. Let me buy this one. And every expansion. There was no real access to like adult board games back then either. Like Cards Against Humanity, you would have got run out on like they would have. Dude, oh my gosh. Can you imagine Cards Against Humanity in like 1992? I couldn't even imagine Apples to Apples in 1992. Clean version of Cards Against Humanity.
That's true. And a couple of the things that, I had always wanted as a kid that I was actually able to find is this is a Shadow thermos. And I also have a Rocketeer thermos.
Oh,
but I don't have the top, unfortunately. And so that's one of the cool things, whether it's online or even yard sales, because I think I've picked those up at a yard sale once, and it was just, I always wanted these. Or sometimes it's even with tagging off what Jason said, sometimes it's replacements for things that we had as kids that ended up getting lost.
If I ever find that thermos and lunchbox yellow with Kermit the Frog on it, I am going to buy it, because I was biking across the highway and it fell and I couldn't stop and get it because cars were coming and it got run over and I cried. But yes, replacements, absolutely. Nope, let me put you back on.
Okay, so you showed off those thermoses, which leads into my next question of what is the crown jewel of your geek collection? So mine's in my hands. I'm kind of happy. I'm kind of proud that I have these, but that's Appleseed Volume 1, and that's nice. Appleseed Volume 3, Book 1. Because Masamune Shirow is awesome. I also have the trade for Ghost in the Shell, which is my all-time favorite book of all time because it's Ghost in the Shell. And I hear that there are rumors going around that people say that a live-action version of a movie of Ghost in the Shell was made.
Never happened.
I refuse to believe it exists. I disbelieve. It's the same thing that people keep trying to tell me that after The Matrix came out, they made 2 sequels. No, they did not. That is a myth. I disbelieve.
Yeah. And if you want to hear more about that, just look up our episode we did on whitewashing.
Pretty sure like 2 or 3 episodes where he goes into that rant. Like it's just not episodes about.
Yeah, it's just whitewashing. Is like half of it is Ghost in the Shell. So what is everyone's crown jewel?
Jason, shut up.
Boy, crown jewel. That's kind of, it's tough to say.
Yeah.
I know the most valuable thing that I have is basically a mint condition Gemmy's bubbling sound making science thing that's valued at about 10 grand. Now I'm also a haunter, so I love haunted houses. I do a haunted house for the neighborhood kids every year, and so I've got a bunch of like the Halloween direction. Wow, what's the word? Decorations. Sorry, it's been a very long weekend. I've produced and emceed 2 shows, burlesque shows in the past 3 days. But a lot of decorations and stuff. So for me, that's one of them. But it also kind of depends on like what, whether it's value or emotional value that's placed into it.
These books aren't worth peanuts, and I'm sure that when I bought them in the 90s, since then they haven't gotten any more value than what I paid for them. I mean, there's probably still $20 books. I don't care. I own Appleseed 1. That to me is worth more than anything.
Drew, I think for me, when it comes to emotional value, it would probably be and I don't have it anymore. It was the very first skeleton that I purchased, full-size skeleton. I gave it to a buddy of mine who does a shadow cast, and we used that skeleton in the very first shadow cast for the Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. And so that was the skeleton. So he tours with them whenever they do that at conventions and stuff. And if we're at the same convention, then I get to do the pre-show with the wonderful Billy Flynn from Geek Radio Daily. But that skeleton, because it was my very first one, that just meant so damn much to me. And so knowing that he's getting his own life out there, still doing things even after his hip broke and all this stuff, and all he has to do is sit in a chair. It's just like, yay, it's kind of like the fields where he's going out to stud for a skeleton.
That story reminds me of what my crown jewel is not in my possession either. It is in my father's possession, I hope.
Dad, if you're
the Sesame Street and Muppet puppets we had growing up.
Like how big? Full size or
full size for hands?
Kid hands or human or adult
human
hands?
Like adult hands. Yeah, they were. Grover felt amazing and looks screen accurate. And I'm sure they were purchased before I was born, most of them. I come from a large family and I am the 7th. So a lot of our toys were purchased long before I was born. And while value wise, I'm sure my dad's Lionel trains that he got when he was a kid are worth much more. Sentimental wise, those Muppets are definitely like, I want those.
Oh, understandable.
I will say the one that I own, and actually this is probably even more, would be, and I share this with Tek, because marriage means he's half mine, is Rory the dragon, which is also a puppet.
Love Rory.
And that is pure sentimentality. Apparently it was a collector's edition. We didn't know it at the time. It's not in any condition because we've restuffed him that collectors would care.
Yeah. Well, I still have my original puppet. It was one of those monkey puppets that wrapped around your neck and your waist.
Yeah.
And I still have that. And that was something that I think I probably got it when I was 5.
Oh, that's great.
So it's at least 35 years old. And I still occasionally, when I'm going through the garage, come across that box like, hey, what's in here? And I think I've specifically left that box unlabeled. So I open it up, see him like, and play with them a little bit and stuff and put it back in. But I did have the chance to get a screen accurate animal Muppet when I was 10. Because my dad, living out in California, we'd go to the state fairgrounds where they would have the gun and knife shows. And so he would go over there and they'd always have the doll and coin show next door. So since my dad, he shelled out for the gun show tickets, and not just by flexing, he actually would purchase them. But then I would sneak into the doll and coin show and then go around and look at all the action figures, the comics. And like I said, there was this one person who had that full puppet. And I was just like, because he also had like a Howdy Doody and a Edgar Bergen or a Charlie McCarthy. And I was just like, oh my, I want these. But he, of course, he was charging $300 for them each. And it was just like, yeah, that's not a thing that's happening. But every day I'm just like,
we never had animal. I don't think we had anyone from the Electric Mayhem. Did we have a Janice? We might have had a Janice. I can't remember. I know we had Prairie Dawn.
When I was a kid, I remember going to gun shows, and at the back would be a 50-gallon drum, a 55-gallon drum of captured World War II Japanese officers' swords. For $50, pick and mix, grab what you want, put it with the scabbard that you want, and just walk away with it. And I remember one year seeing them for $50 and thinking to myself, yep, next year I'll save up my Christmas money, I'll save up my birthday money, and I'll buy my officer's sword. I went back the next year, they had one left, they wanted $2,000 for it, and since then they have all been completely unattainable. They are Chinese repros are selling for $700.
Jeez.
So that brings me to my next question, which is,
I see how it is.
I'm sorry. Go. I missed you.
Hasn't he been hassled enough tonight?
I know. No, actually not at all. Actually, what's really funny is I have a lot of things that growing up, like my crowning jewel would have changed, but sentiment plus I don't even know value. I haven't checked it out, but I have two. Mint condition, still in the cardboard box with the plastic zip ties holding them in. Care Bears.
Wow.
I have Cheerheart.
Hopefully Tek's sister is not listening to this because you might
kill you for those.
Yeah.
And I have Grumpy Bear.
Oh, Grumpy Bear.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. Cheerheart, that's not from the original line. Okay, come on now. They were originally bears. Those were after the movie. Come on, man.
Hey, the cousins are cool. Okay, leave the Care Bear cousins alone.
No, oh my God, don't talk about the cousins because I'm so mad because I remember it. I know I couldn't have been more than 5 years old, and I remember this so much because I loved the Care Bears. I owned all the movies. I loved them, and I wanted a Braveheart lion.
Of course you did.
And they never got me one. I got Grumpy Bear, and I got the bear with the rainbow on its tummy, and I was so upset.
Hey,
but
Tek, where's your Swift-Heart?
But in the tub with the rest of the stuff. I have my sister. When my sister got married, for a little while, she had a pretty good little side business she was doing of buying. She was buying Care Bears and Popples, if you remember those. And she would buy them and touch them up a little bit, and she'd buy the ones that were cheap for like $2-3, and then she'd sell them to collectors, and she was making quite a decent amount of bank. And she ended up buying me a really nice Swift-Heart rabbit, which was always my favorite growing up, and now I have him on.
The cousins were the stuff, man.
Yeah, but and the one, and I had to abuse it when she finally got it because it was always my favorite. But the Popples, they were these cute little stuffy marsupial creatures, and you could grab them by the pouch and just sort of like flip them inside out into their pouch and just sort of like throw them around. But they had one where the inside of the pouch was decorated like a soccer ball. So when you flipped him inside out, he turned into a little stuffy soccer ball, which I kicked around the house and I kicked at her cats. And oh yeah, I was mean to that thing.
You're a great big brother. What's the other one, Jason?
Hold on. I just love that basically you admitted your sister had a black market popple situation going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
She flipped her popples.
Yeah, she's a popple flipper.
Yo, man, you need some popples? What you got? I got all kinds of popples.
And I would have to say the thing that to me is my crowning jewel. It would probably have to be, and I'm pretty sure he's emptied of his stuffing and it's just an empty sack sitting in my attic at my old house. But it's my 3.5 foot stuffed Michelangelo.
I'm picturing just in a painting position or a chiseling. The Ninja Turtle. Okay.
Oh yes, absolutely the Ninja Turtle. Because it was, and what's really great is there's a picture in my house of me sitting on the lap of one of these, guy in a costume, Leonardo Ninja Turtles, and I look furious. I look like I want to karate kick this dude in his groin because he is not Michelangelo. I was sold a bill of goods that there was going to be Ninja Turtles at the mall, and I could go get a picture with them. And I was like, yes, picture with Michelangelo. But no, it was that crap Leonardo. No one likes Leonardo.
So it's not that you knew it wasn't actually a Ninja Turtle. It's that it was Leonardo.
Yes, exactly. It is not that it was a dude in a costume. It was the fact that it was not Michelangelo.
You just came at the wrong time. They had broken it into 4 shifts. Then he goes behind the scenes and just changes the colors.
They did. Like,
really?
Yes. Like, throughout the week, there was different turtles, and my family just took me on the Leo day. I was so mad. Like,
yeah, they probably took you like on a Monday. Jason, you need to send me that picture so I can use it as the album art.
Oh man, I've actually got to. I might go to Roanoke tomorrow. I might see if I can go.
So,
can you just take that picture and put it over as avatar for the entire show and use that?
Exactly. So, when we go to cons and different events, a lot of times you can get some pretty cool toys that you're not going to find in any of the stores or online or whatever without extensive research. Although that's getting more and more rare these days, individual items at cons. I mean, they're selling pops and all the same stuff. But what is the best toy that you've picked up at a con or an event?
Ooh.
And while you guys are thinking, I'm going to cheat. Sort of. This is my wand that I got last year at Balticon that was hand turned by Starla Hutchin.
I was about to ask, is that a Starla original? Because
it is a Starla original. I don't believe it's from her first batch, but it is from the first few months that she was turning, and it fits my hand like a glove. And it has a whole backstory and history that is written out on calligraphy that's in the other room.
Mm-hmm. And it works.
Fantastic. And it works.
She turned me into a newt. It got better.
You knew that was coming. You knew that was coming. So, what is the best thing that you've gotten at a con?
Oh man.
Actually, if you want to take a minute to think, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can connect to this conversation on my phone, because I can show you what it is because it's hanging up on my wall.
Awesome. And by the way, in the chat, Aaron Jackson says, a newt?
Yeah, I got better, Jax. Don't worry.
Was it the type of newt that survived an alien incursion on?
No. Yeah, I didn't turn into a little blonde girl. Don't worry.
That's what the spell was supposed to do, and it.
Hey. If turning into a little blonde girl got me tucked in with Sigourney Weaver, I'll take it.
That's true.
So no, my favorite thing that I got at a con was going around a couple of different anime cons to the dealer's room where all the artists were, where they were taking commissions, and I was in my whole Plague Doctor getup, and I would commission them to do a drawing. They're like, well, which character do you want me to draw? I'd say me. And I would happily pose for them, and I would just have them draw me. And some of them really played with the pose. Some of them, one girl did this amazing job where she drew. She goes, "Your costume was missing something. I added a cape." And it's like, damn, now I need to add a cape because it looks so badass. But you don't have to bleep that one. It's in context. You're fine.
It's the Bible. It's fine.
I don't believe bad donkey is in the Bible.
Bad donkey. No, I believe it was called Ottinger is the thing.
Oh man.
Right, so I am going to turn this is mostly for the YouTube people, but there we go. I see some sonic screwdrivers on a question mark shelf, which is awesome.
This is the Doctor Who wall.
Ooh,
and it's picking up my hold on. Let me disconnect the other call. Look. Oh my gosh, it's all of us here. Let me just disconnect. Doop. There we go. Okay. And then I'll switch it back on. So these oh man, my Cyberman fell. I got to fix that later on. But so it's a Cyberman and a Dalek. You can't really see because that fell apparently. But it's a giant question mark, as you can see. Yes. Inside are one of my derpy kids flipped at Sonic's. God, they will get a scolding later. So I've got the steampunk Steampunk sonic screwdriver. Got Tennant's screwdriver.
That's the pen.
That is the pen, correct.
We have
got the let's hear, that would be Smith's sonic screwdriver. And then geez Louise, my kids have been screwing around with all of this. That's a little weeping angel
Lego minifig.
Yeah, the Lego minifig thing. It's knockoff Lego, whatever it is. A little TARDIS that it spins and stuff like that. I've got the Master's or the pocket watch that the Doctor kept his essence in, and of course the Master's ring. But from the convention circuit, this is one of my favorites from the con circuit. So the burnt piece that somebody made and was selling them. I believe if you are interested in your own, it's Props by Jake, member of the Pineapple Shaped Lamps, a fantastic group.
That's really funny. His name is Jake Seward.
Steward.
Oh, Steward. Oh, I thought it said Seward. I was about to get confused.
So you can go Facebook Props by Jake to get one of those for yourself.
That's cool.
That is awesome. Now, your Matt Smith sonic screwdriver, that's the one that fully extends, which is very cool. We have the one that is an actual screwdriver as well. It's a multi-screwdriver on the bottom.
It doesn't work like that, okay? It's all Hollywood stuff, okay?
Yeah. No, that's great, though.
But, ooh.
Yeah. See, ours doesn't open up like that. So
but you take the cap off the other end, and it is an actual screwdriver.
Oh, that's cool. So yours actually has a purpose. That's the only reason why mine's sitting there.
So, Jason, what's your con find?
Gosh.
Can we talk about how he shrieked and totally fangirled when he got his books autographed by Nathan Lowell?
There's that.
No, actually.
or is it any of your voice actor interviews? Because I guess that would kind of count too.
And honestly, just because I love Richard Epcar and he's up there, but he's not number one. And he's the only reason he's not number one. As much as I love Richard Epcar and I love him doing Bateau and so many other voices, it's got to be Debbie Derryberry who did the voice of Neutron. But the only reason is because I think we talked about that on the podcast. My mom passed back in 2007, 2008. And when I was growing up, we used to watch all the Jim Varney Ernest movies.
Yes.
And Debbie Derryberry got her start in voice acting on Ernest Goes to Camp when they did ADR work for the young kids. And she was recommended by Jim Varney. It was a little thing she told me during the interview I did with her. And it just blew me away that it's such a small world. And I'm like, holy crap. It was such a great moment. And it's probably got to be my favorite con moment. My favorite.
The voice of Ryo Oki. Okay, I know her now.
Yeah.
Yes. Dude, she's done so much stuff. She's a wonderful lady. And it's probably that. Richard Epcar would probably be second to that because I've met him twice. The first time I forgot the brand new $100-some H2N Zoom mic I bought specifically to record interviews at cons, and I forgot it. And he was the only guest that year that was like, "Oh, you just want to? Sure, let's go to the business center, and I'll gladly interview you." And I'm like, "Sorry, I forgot my microphone on. I'll probably never see you again." And lo and behold, 2 or 3 years later, him and his wife both sit down with me after a crazy day at a convention, and I get to interview them, and I also get Nutty, probably her greatest ever soundbite for a podcast ever.
Yes. That's when Richard Epcar says that he loves me.
Aww.
Yes. So,
by the way, can't have Richard Siegfried and Epcar in the same room because I'm pretty sure the world would explode if those two voices.
Good voices working together, I'll tell you that much. So here is a question at the heart of the matter of geek toys and collectibles. Do you keep them in the packaging or do you take them out?
I'm having a fight right now because I bought that curio cabinet and I don't know if I should take my pops out or leave them in the package.
And this is
it hurts.
This is the I think it's an individual choice, and it all depends what you're collecting them for. For me, a toy is meant to be played with, and by toy, I expand that to mean anything that you don't need to live, but you have anyway. So you get some enjoyment out of using it. Ergo, it's a toy. Excuse me. A geek is anyone who is unashamed about their passions. You can be a geek about knitting, about lawn care, about gardening, about cooking, about guns or knives, or about 10,000 other things. So if you buy something to put on your shelf and look at and not interact with, well, that's fine. If that's the enjoyment that you get out of it is looking at it. Me, I'm a tactile kind of guy. The idea of buying a toy and putting it on a shelf and not being able to play with it bothers me. I mean, I buy knives for my kitchen so I can cut things. I buy I went to an antique store a while ago and I found a 1950s vintage Lyman reloading press for peanuts. They had no idea what they had on their shelf, and I brought it over to my dad's house. We cleaned it up, and now I've got a vintage reloading press. And guess what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to reload ammo with it. I'm not going to put it on my shelf and stare at it. I'm going to use the thing.
And you're not going to sell it for like much more, which you could.
And this whole idea of keeping things on your shelf because one day maybe it'll be that rare Mickey watch that'll sell for $250,000, or thinking that comic book you bought in 1996 at the height of the comic craze is somehow going to turn into Action Comics #1. Here's a hint, guys. It's not.
Yeah.
None of them are.
In the collector's world now, nothing is truly rare.
Yeah.
Everything is. I mean, one of the things that killed the comics industry in the early 90s was all of the variant covers and them charging more for this and that and the other. And it almost completely wiped out the comics industry. And nowadays, action figures and stuff some of them are going to be released in minimum numbers, but people who want them will find them. And the problem is that the more rare they are, the more expensive they are. Only a very small subsect of people will be able to get those. And stuff that are mass produced, everybody keeps a handle on it because they're thinking that it might be that super rare thing that they'll be able to make $1 million off of. And you're circling right back to the Beanie Baby bubble that ended up just like, oh, okay, you can get them for a box of them for a nickel at any yard sale. It's the collecting industry doesn't work like that anymore. So yeah, I totally agree with me personally. I like to take them out of the box, lick them, put them back in the box, and then look at them whenever I want to. But it's
not Lick-O-Made.
Oh, it's not. I'm sorry, not. Oh, all right. I made it no. They like some of the stuff I get specifically to look at. Some of the stuff I don't play with because I'm not a child. I'm kidding. So for me, it's really just I get stuff that I like to look at. Just because I if it's within reach, and the kids want to play with it, chances are they're probably going to break it, and then I won't have it anymore, and then it won't look as cool. But I like to kind of display things, and so I've transitioned to getting things that are meant to be looked at versus things that have articulation or posing and can be played with. But I think that there's a lot of really awesome things that you can play with.
Yeah. So Jack says in the chat there, I licked it, therefore I own it. That's the right logic right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how many friends of mine I've seen, coworkers that, they got serious with a girl, or when they started having kids, all of a sudden, they sell the PlayStation, get rid of all their comic books, and it's like, no, it's time to grow up. I even met a girl once who cut her hair after getting married because, quote, it's inappropriate for a married woman to have long hair. Come on, you know that.
And this was not a religious person.
No, and this wasn't the 1840s.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what was going on here. But this whole idea that growing up means you have to immediately throw away everything you knew as a kid is wrong. The only person that gets to define what an adult is you.
Mm-hmm.
And
as long as you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of the people that you're responsible for.
Absolutely. If you're paying your bills, you've got your life is going on and everything is safe and secure, but you choose to have fun by playing with action figures, or bring
Absolutely.
a gun to the office to shoot your coworkers with because it's hilarious.
It was required when I worked at the EPA.
Absolutely. And right now we've got a little mini Nerf war that's starting, and I found that all of our students have been stashing Nerf wars in the dorms, and that, there's a staff versus student war that will erupt soon.
When you come to visit, I've got something for you to take back. It was a purchase I made for cosplay purposes, and I just haven't had the time to actually sand it and then repaint it and finish it. So I'll repurpose it to your war. It's fine.
So
and just one last thing, Nutty, just to tag off that, with me donating my Star Wars stuff, it was really just because I was kind of done with that. And when I was younger, I never thought I would do that, but ultimately what it was doing was taking up space in my garage. And I realized that if I was having an opportunity to kind of pay it forward and stuff. I completely agree. I think that if somebody's spouse makes them sell them, like, no, you can easily just box it up. That's not saying that at some point in time you're not going to be in the picture, but at some point in time that might be something that you want to pass on to somebody else. Video game systems, if you don't play them, box them up, because at some point in time you might want to play them. The other side to that is I've known some folks that had to sell parts of their collection just because money got tight. Life circumstances happened, and that was something that got them to float on.
But and that goes back to the whole, you define what an adult is as long as you're taking care of yourself. I mean, if you can't move out of mom's basement because of your pop addiction, your pop figure addiction, that's going to be a problem. But you're paying your bills, you're doing your thing. There's nothing wrong with having things that make you happy. And should it matter if it's spending money at the garden center or spending money at the toy store,
and I've talked about this because, again, I work at GameStop, I work in retail, and a lot of people, I've had people come in and say that I'm getting rid of this, or I'm trading it in because I'm an adult now and this is kid stuff. And I always go to this same story, and it's not even a story, it's real life happening currently. I have a guy who's a regular of mine, comes in, he's probably in his early 80s, if not older, got a PlayStation 4, and he absolutely loves video games. And it's not just like the Call of Duties or the shoot 'em ups, like I can pick this up and put this down type video games. This dude loves RPGs. I'm talking about Nier Automata. I'm talking about Persona 5. I'm talking about the Berserk Band of the Hawk Dynasty Warriors clone game. Like, this is the type of stuff he's getting into. And when he comes in, I know what he's looking for, and I can recommend things for him. And this is a guy again, in his 80s.
That's a lot of faith in his health, that if he's in his 80s and starting some of these RPGs, I'm gonna be able to beat it.
Well, and we've talked about Tek's mother's introduction to video games later in life, and how she's got the Wii U, she's got the Game Boy, she's got all the different things.
Yeah, mom didn't start gaming till her mid-50s.
Yeah, and she's hooked, and she plays all the different things, and she gets past most games further than Tek ever did.
But my mom's big pleasure in video games is games where you explore and find things and have to find secrets and things. So when she was making her way through every Zelda game, I'm like, Mom, I got another one. It involves a little bit of shooting, but it's an explore game. I think you'll like it. It's called Metroid Prime. So
Grand Theft Auto.
so mom started playing the Metroid Prime series, and both my mom and I are night owls. We're insomniacs. We don't sleep. And my mom calls me one night at like midnight. It's like, are you sleeping? I said, of course not. What's up? She goes, well, I'm having a problem in my game. I'm wondering if you can help me. Like, what's wrong? She's like, well, I'm in Metroid Prime. I can't beat Ridley. I'm like, Mom, I've never made it to Ridley. You're beyond me. I can't help you.
Yeah. And
Google it, Ma. Google it.
By the way, Tek's mother did reenact Grand Theft Auto once on Tek when he was picking her up at work once. It was hilarious. She
steal the
told
car,
him-
beat him up, thinking he was a hooker, and steal his money.
No, exactly that. I was home for a long weekend. I had brought my PlayStation to my parents' house. I set it up in the basement. My mom was working nights at the mall as a cleaner at the time, and so she was going to work 4 to 12. I was going to pick her up at midnight. So for the afternoon, I'm playing games in the basement. Mom is just sitting on the couch knitting, and we're talking, and we're having a conversation, and she's watching me play, was it GTA 3 at the time?
Yeah.
And I go to pick her up at midnight, and I pull up to the door to the mall, and instead of walking to the passenger door, Mom walks around the car to the driver's door, opens the door, grabs me by the shirt, and she goes, "Get the hell out of the car!" and starts pulling me out. Like, "Mom, what are you doing?" She's like, "I watched you play that game all afternoon. I thought it was the thing that we did now." Mom!
It was.
What's your mom's email address? I want to send her the hot coffee mod.
It was
Jason, how dare you say that?
hysterical. She's hysterical. It's fantastic.
That's
so
awesome.
I too believe that you need to take things out of the package. There is a great line that Geek Acres has said on his now defunct podcast about toys. And it's that friends don't belong in plastic prisons. And I think that they should be shared and enjoyed.
Share and enjoy.
Share and enjoy.
I've seen Toy Story 2. I know what happens when they come out of their packages.
Exactly. So I also think that as many of us have this issue of having too many things, giving them away, spreading that love and getting rid of some of them is great, because then you have more room to enjoy other things and new things.
I had several $100s in modified Nerf guns that I had been building for years with no real purpose other than the joy of modifying and repainting Nerf guns. And upon moving, instead of bringing them with me, I donated them all to my friend's 5-year-old son. But to watch the joy on his face at my going away party when he brought the whole trunk of guns, and I kept one for myself, and I ambushed him in the front door of the house and started a 4-hour Nerf war between all the kids and the adults.
From the beginning from the moment he came to the moment he left, there was a continuous Nerf war going on.
There's nothing like grilling ribs while dodging Nerf darts.
It was fantastic. And the adults would go in and out, but the kids just kept going the whole time, and it was fantastic. So Jack says in the chat that he and his wife were having the same conversation about the collectible Star Wars drones they got during Christmas. Ultimately, yes, they agree. They're meant to be played with. So these drones got out, they got to fly. And I'm going to sit here and say, if you have a drone or something, that really needs to be used.
Yeah, that's not a collectible. That is a thing.
Dude, we had at work, we had a Millennium Falcon drone, and I almost bought it. Like, I was like, it was one of those moments where you're just sitting there going, I don't need that at all. But
so I think we've kind of touched on one of my other points was, what makes something a toy. Tek has said that it's anything that you don't need to live. I say it's anything that brings you joy that's not a tool. So my pens still technically count as a tool, right? They're not toys.
Tools can be.
You mean those? You mean all those boxes on my bookshelf downstairs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anything that isn't that its sole purpose is that it brings you pleasure.
Yeah,
that it makes you happy, it satisfies you, it fulfills you, and that it's not something that you use to then be fulfilled. So like a pen, if drawing is your thing, I think a pen is not a collectible unless it's something that just sits on the shelf, because a pen is a tool that brings you happiness. So I don't, like, if you're using it and it can run out, I don't really think of it as a collectible. If that's how you use it. If you have a very nice expensive pen and you keep it on a shelf or something like that, then that becomes a collectible.
But I've got a shed and a back room full of tools.
Yeah.
And, I build knives and I tinker on little projects and I build things, and, the time in my workshop with the music going, working away, every single thing in that shop is a toy.
Because as Rich was saying, it's bringing you pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, well, yeah, no, you know what, strike what I said, edit what I said out completely. Because that's also the thing, like, tools, like, wrenches, a hammer, those, sure, you collect tools to use them for things. The tool may not be a collectible, and maybe that's the definition between a collectible and things we collect.
Exactly.
Just to throw that out there as a potential existential crisis. Because I think, like, yeah, the tools, because, like, I hate building things because it's just a pain in the butt, and I'm always worried that things are going to fall over. But I put in a lot of work in building the things that I use for my haunt. So, and I have a collection of tools to be able to do those things. And even though I don't necessarily like building, I like the effect of the things once they're built,
Yep.
So if somebody smarter than me can extrapolate that into the actual thought that was in my head, feel free. But I think that maybe that might be a little bit of a distinction between, what is the difference between a collectible and things that we collect?
Yeah. And, as we were saying before, the whole toy collectible value game, unless it's something very specific or a mistake, I feel like that's over. And Rich had mentioned the Beanie Baby thing earlier, and I remember what made the Beanie Baby really valuable is if the tag was in pristine condition. And after like a year or two of them being out, they started coming with little plastic protectors for the tag,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when you knew it was over.
Yeah, and also I think, like, because there were, back in the day, there were conventions, but a lot of it was science fiction, very niche conventions, the Star Trek, the Star Wars type deals. But now that they've become so prevalent, and you have the access to meet the people who create and voice these characters and things that you enjoy, that also has sparked a kind of a revelation with collectible items. Rich was talking about earlier that he had the writer of some of the Deadpool comics sign the Deadpool pops that he had. And it's those type of moments that feed into your collection that allow you, or in your brain justify you saying, oh man, that $200 diva figure I want from Overwatch, I totally got her voice actress to sign it. It's great. And it's those type of things that didn't happen as often back when nerdy things weren't as prevalent. But now that they've gotten so huge and so popular and so prevalent, you can do that now, and that definitely spurs you on to say, I'm gonna buy that because I'm gonna get somebody to sign that. And I mean, if I could, I will. At some point I'm going to try to get it done. But I've got a book. It's called Osamu Tezuka, the God of Manga. It's by Helen McCarthy. And it's a book talking about Osamu Tezuka. They consider him the God of Manga. He wrote Astro Boy and a bunch of different things. And I want her to sign that book. If I could, if he was still alive, I would get Osamu Tezuka to sign it. But it's those type of things that definitely, push you into wanting to get these things, because it's very cathartic to be like, man, I got this really cool thing, this really unique thing. And not only is it rare, unique, and cool, but the person who made it, or the person it's made for or about, also signed it.
Yeah. You've got a connection now, and it becomes sentimental. And I think the sentimentality of it is where the real value is.
Well, I think also it can be that we know our memories are fleeting, and that it's easy, even things that meant so much to us at one point will eventually fade away, or it takes something to recall that. So I'm wondering if we like getting the signatures so we have tangible proof of this thing that was so outside of the ordinary, outside of the norm. Because there's because of this show and this topic, I started thinking about stuff that I have, and I'm remembering stuff that I was like, holy crap, I haven't thought about that in years. I had forgotten that that was a thing that happened. But because I have that autograph, I know, because I'm not an autograph hound, but there are some people that are very important to me. And I realize like, oh crap. Oh, that's right. I did get to meet that person. I actually got to hang out with that person. It wasn't just a mum. It was it was a thing that was very important to me, but I had already kind of assimilated that into my life and kind of moved on for new experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, it's Tek talked about it earlier when I fanboyed for Nathan Lowell. But what's funny is I didn't fanboy anywhere near as hard for Nathan Lowell as I did when I forgot my own name when I met Mur Lafferty. Like, it's just, it's those moments, right? Like, I bought her Afterlife series in all the book forms. The 5 books that it came out in, I ordered them from the bookstore that was in North Carolina where she lives, and she used to go in and sign them and stuff like that. And I bought them specifically to take to Balticon and get her to sign. And I absolutely just shot off into space, man. Tripping out. Don't know what I'm doing. And
what the hell? When you met me, you were like, sup.
Sup.
Because he forgot everything else he was going to say.
Yeah.
It's those experiences, I think, that also feed into it, man. It's because you can't recreate those experiences. Like, you can never do that again. Like, I can never
never be a first-time con goer again.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it's those moments that make it so good. And because you not only do you connect them, like you said, to those memories and they're fleeting, but also it's rare. Like, we consume so much that to have something touch us and be so precious to us that it causes those moments make them even better. I mean, I remember when I first met PG, mind you, I'm pretty sure he was in a bush, but
no, he wasn't in the bush. That was Tony.
No. Yeah, you're right. PG wasn't in the bush. Tony was in the bush, but later PG, Tony, and Tek humped a car.
No,
that sounds about right, though.
Tek and Tony humped PG's car.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a sexy little car. It was a Cooper S, man. She was looking at me. She was making them eyes with them headlights.
See that? And it's that right there. Like, that literally.
You'll never forget those things, though.
Exactly.
I remember the first time I met PG. Hi, I'm Patrick. Hi, PG. I know who you are.
No, and it's those moments. It's those encapsulated moments that make collecting and keeping these memories in a material form so precious. And it's great. Like, I mean, and it's kind of when you were talking about before we podcast about Balticon. It's like Balticon was my first con. Like, it was my second con. But it was the first con I ever went to where I got to meet all these people that I had read and listened to their books. And then I got introduced to more people, and it was a vicious cycle. Very vicious cycle.
And you met me.
Indeed, I did. Mind you, by the way, once we get off air, I can recant the story of my first meeting with Tek and Lulu. But anyway, but it's all of that makes collecting and keeping these things so great.
They are mementos of our life experiences.
There was a book called Angry White Pajamas that was written in the 90s about the martial art that Nutty and I study. In the book, the book is about an Oxford poet named Robert Twigger who goes to Japan to study this martial art in this intense 11-month training program. And he doesn't have a fun time. And he doesn't make a lot of friends. And the whole book is about the trials and tribulations of, learning the martial art of the Tokyo Riot Police. And he doesn't have a fun time, and he makes a lot of enemies, and he holds no punches, literally, in his book, about the people that he does not like, including one of his classmates whom he nicknamed the Mad Dog, because the guy was just brutal and the worst person ever, and he hates the Mad Dog. And he never names names. He just calls these people by their nicknames. Well, I've met the Mad Dog. His name is Nick Mills.
We are friends with him.
We are friends with Nick
and students.
I've drank at his house. I have been to his class. He's a 6th degree black belt now. He runs a club in Mississauga, Ontario, and we've gone to a couple of classes. And more than getting him to autograph the book as the Mad Dog, I got a chance to feel his Aikido, and I got a chance to, like, no holds barred. Like, it was Tek, try to punch the Mad Dog. Okay. And I did it again and again and again. And every time he threw me harder and harder and harder. And getting a chance to take Ukemi for Nick Mills Sensei is worth more than 1 million autographs, and worth more than, you know, handshakes with booth babes or hover hand photographs with the pretty con girls, and, you know, everything else I've done. That, to me, that it's what we're talking here, you know, that personal experience. That
and how many signatures of people from that book do you have?
I have
in your
2
book right
in that
Only
book.
2?
2.
Okay.
I'm waiting to meet Spike. Every time I go to see him, I forget the book.
Oh.
But yeah, and his one defense against a hand grab was to just full on smack me across the face. I was not expecting that. It was quite effective, especially for the wrist lock that followed. But yeah, that was a wake up call. But then afterwards, we went and drank beer and had a great time. So
and to be fair, his Aikido is hard Aikido. It's
but the
Japanese style instruction.
The Mad Dog,
but he's a teddy bear.
Yeah, the Mad Dog, by the way, is a high school humanities teacher and probably the nicest guy on the planet.
And a great educator. Like, it may be hard, but you're learning, and he's making sure you understand that nothing's mean. It's great. So on that note, we've gone a little longer than I planned.
Yay.
But thank you very much for everyone joining us. Just a couple things. So we're gonna do some quick shout outs if anybody has a particular shout out that they want to give, and then we'll go around and tell people where they can find us on the internet, and then I'll say goodbye and I'll read the patrons. So Rich, do you have any shout outs, anything that anybody this month piqued your fancy and you think people should check out?
You know what? If you're not watching the television show LA to Vegas, it's a delight. Check that out. Actually, better yet, watch The Tick on Amazon, because that needs more seasons. I don't know if it needs more viewers, but everybody should watch it. It's fantastic. It's a delight. As per podcasts or anything like that, I've been actually going through the back catalog of Never Not Funny, because I took a few months off from that, so I'm catching up, and that's Jimmy Pardo's podcast. Basically nothing that really needs pimping on that. So I've got things to pimp on my own side, but when it comes to other people's stuff, I mean, honestly, here's what I would say. Go out and find live performance art, whether it's comedy, burlesque, dancing, drum circles, no matter what it is, go out and support it, because we do all the online stuff. We do all the collecting stuff, but remember to go out and create an art of some sort, or at least intake it, because that's a great way to kind of fill up your batteries.
I don't know where our listeners live, but I guarantee you that where they live is an amazing live community of artists and musicians.
They just don't know that's there.
You just don't know it's there. And if you find them, it is amazing what happens at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday in a dingy coffee shop at that part of town that you never go to. There is some amazing music out there to be found.
Yep. Tek, do you have anything to?
Everybody that I've been watching has over 500,000 subscribers on Twitch and YouTube, so they don't need my help. Other than that, I've been watching reruns. No, you guys know what I like.
Okay.
Oh, I did. Wait, I did think of a shout out. I did think of one.
Go ahead.
Matricula. Go to matricula.com or twitch.com/matricula. She is the founder of the Safe, Sane, Consensual Clown Posse. She does these delightful, funny songs, and she also does some Let's Play stuff on her stream. And she also does a Naughty Ladies knitting circle where they knit vulvas and clitori.
Nice.
But seriously, she's awesome. She's one of my favorite people in the world. So yes, check her out. Matricula.com, METRICULA.com, or twitch.com/matricula.
Awesome. And Jason?
Well, big shout out. And it's a little bit of a personal one to me. Guys, go check out. She's done work for me. Matter of fact, several of my logos for the podcast she's done. Her name is Tiffany Gonzalez. You can find her at tiffanygonzalez.carbonmade.com. Check out her artwork, check out her commissions, and get some stuff done. She's wonderful, and she is absolutely marvelous. She's matter of fact, she sent me an email because I haven't had a chance to adjust an order I got from her because of just time, work, and some things, and she's been absolutely understanding. Her artwork is great. In fact, if you notice the Halloween Horror Fest logo, the original Talk Nerdy to Me logos were done by her at AFO Anime Con in Florida. Check her out. She's absolutely marvelous. A wonderful, wonderful person and great artist. And of course, you can always find me and all of the stuff we do at talknerdytomepodcast.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdytome. And of course, you can find me on at Nerdy to Me Podcast. I'm doing it now because
just because. And so I want to throw a shout out to Jessica May's first live performance. If you are in Southern Ontario, go check out the Red Harg this Friday, March 23rd at 9 p.m. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to make it because we're on our way to see a certain Big Bear. But if you are not in Southern Ontario, all of the clips will be available on YouTube later, and you can check that out by going to Skinner.fm. Now, where can people find you on the internet? Not Jason. Rich, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find information about the art collective that I, excuse me, that I started with my producing partner, Mistress Jinx at, hold on, I need to take a sip here. Wow. I thought I had a few more minutes to talk before my throat dried up. You can find us at facebook.com/creativity out of context. And we've got all sorts of art. And we also do tables at conventions. And you can check out our artists' work. They're also facebook.com/boomstick burlesque to find out where we are producing a show next. For me, you can find my artwork at imadeanart.com. And of course, you can listen to me Tuesday through Friday at geekradiodaily.com. Ding. And of course, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/geekradiodaily, because we've got all kinds of cartoons and sketches and field reports from conventions and all kinds of content there.
Tech, anywhere you want to send people to find you?
All my stuff's at nimlost.org as soon as I start uploading content again.
You will hear all those links on the outro. So thank you very much for joining us. Bye. And one quick addendum. Also, I do want to thank all of the patrons who have been supporting us. And because of your support, we have 2 episodes a month instead of just 1, which is what the original incarnation of this podcast was. And I think we might be getting close to a year of 2 episodes a month. So that's pretty cool. So we want to thank our newest Big Daddy, Dave. And we want to thank our longstanding Big Daddy, Jason.
Thanks, daddies.
And they get that.
You guys refer to your Patreon people as sugar daddies? That's awesome.
Yeah, well, sugar daddy, big daddy.
No. Rich, the best part about that is, right, Nutty was talking about how she needed to reach a certain goal so that they could do 2 episodes a month. So I immediately was like,
done.
I got this. Guess what, Nutty? 2 episodes a month. Bam.
That's fantastic.
I'm gonna be on a lot of those.
Hey, it helps. It helps. You.
And now my dear and longtime friend Dave the Jedi Wookiee has decided to step his game up and has also become a top tier donator. And now there's going to be a battle of the Big Daddies.
Yeah, and it helps that they're both very tall men,
but both very tall, very real sized gentlemen. So it's gonna be.
But we also
you guys are doing pay-per-view coleslaw fight, right?
Yeah. Oh,
no.
yes.
We're debating a Patreon exclusive basketball game, but then we realized that we're all old men, so it would just be us like, down in Ben Gay and like, oh god, I can't even get in the post and like fall over.
I'd love to see the two of you play basketball. It'd be the slowest basketball game in history. With no jump shot, no jumping whatsoever. Just two old 6-footers going,
my knees. All right. So we also want to thank Susanna and Andy Luke, and we want to thank our QC guy, Jax, who's also in the chat. Thank you, Jax. We want to thank our super fan, Shane. We want to thank Beth. We want to thank the Radical Geek, Stephen Pritchard, who is going under the knife tomorrow. We have best thoughts and wishes for you, and hopefully by the time this is posted, everything is good. We want to thank Rich the TT. We want to thank Mike. We want to thank King Kennedy. We want to thank Lynette. We want to thank Justine. You can check out her photos on Patreon. We want to thank Susan, Melissa, the bathtub mermaid, Jason's favorite, Kinsey, Ian, Harold, Patrick, and often Nick. And I lost Tech. So thank you everyone for joining us. And this should be out in a day or two. We'll see. Bye.
Bye.
And I'm going to stop the broadcast.